What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Mace. I'm coming to you from Canada with another Reddit thread of people sharing their stories of really just funny encounters with Americans or Americans doing really weird things, specifically American tourists abroad. So let's hop into it. The question to prompt answers is, I know that you guys get a ton of questions about America, so excuse me for asking yet another, but this stuff has given me some interesting perspective on how people outside the US view us in general. There's of course the stereotype that American tourists are loud and obnoxious while abroad. I've seen that while on vacation in Europe myself, so I know this stereotype doesn't exactly come out of thin air. So what's the funniest or weirdest thing you've ever seen an American tourist do in the UK or other places outside the US? Funniest here can mean dumbest, most clueless, etc., most ignorant. Whatever stood out to you, and whatever made you think, yep, that's an American. The lead comment on this video is perfect. I just love London. It's just an amazing country. Americans and geography, we've seen it time and time again. They really struggle. They really struggle with geography. Instead of pledging allegiance to the flag every morning, they should pledge allegiance to studying a map of the globe. That would be preferential. Thinking London is a country, though, is pretty wild. I don't... That's weapons grade stupidity. They do seem to think everything is in London. When I was in America, they asked where I was from. Now I have a bit of an all over the place accent from moving a lot in family. Most people here can't place it, let alone overseas. So I just went Brighton. I live in a small town and Brighton is the nearest city. The guy then went, wow, what's that part of London like? Oh God. Saw a bunch of Americans get on Eurostar, the train that goes from London to Paris under the Channel. They didn't realize that they had assigned seating and got kicked off the table they co-opted. Okay, not the biggest faux pas in the world. But then, one of them started whining about how they really wanted a window seat so they could see all of the fishes, thinking that the tunnel goes apparently through the ocean, like some sort of... You know what? I think there's been preliminary engineering designs for tunnels like that, but yeah, nothing exists yet. So, yeah, the tunnel... How deep does the channel get? I'm just curious what the ocean depth is. A surprising amount of Brits think the channel goes through the water as well. So, there you have it. I was in Cornwall for a few days, and we'd gone out for lunch in a cafe. A group of Americans were at the table next to us. They were lovely, seemed so excited about their trip. One of their group had been to the bar and came back with their drinks. He proudly announces, I got all of us a pint at the best British cider. It's called Strongbow. The Brits drink nothing else. Is Strongbow... I don't really know what Strongbow is. I feel like I've seen it in liquor stores before. The brand, anyways. The bar staff had definitely been having a bit of fun with them there. Strongbow, I'm assuming, is not a cider. Is it like a dark beer? I don't know. Occasionally I'll see posts on Reddit mentioning importing or drinking cider in the US, and there's always Americans recommending these amazing top quality brands like Strongbow and Magners. I'm not really in on the inside joke on this one. I was once stuck behind an American tourist in a clothes shop. He was trying to pay with traveler's checks, and the shop assistant was patiently explaining that for the 10th time that yes, the shop accepted traveler's checks, but not the ones in dollars. Only ones in pounds, because in the UK, it is necessary to use UK currency. Yeah, we've seen a lot of these stories on prior videos, Americans trying to use American dollars and their own currency around the world. And then the real kicker is when they get upset about it. Getting upset when they're in a foreign country and not able to spend their currency at a foreign shop. It's like, what wires aren't connecting here? Next. When I was a student in a small university town, I was walking along the high street. An American tourist stopped me and said, "Excuse me, miss, do you know how I can get to a certain hotel?" I explained it as best as I could, and the man said, "Thank you so much, and this is for you." And before I knew what was happening, he had pressed something into my hand and gone away. I looked, and it was a 2-pound coin. He tipped me. For reference, I was an adult. I was just a passerby, not an employee of any kind. I still don't know if he thought I was a child, if he thought we were all starving third world street urchins, or if he thought the whole UK was a theme park staffed by people in ordinary clothes. That could be a funny skit, yeah. Just Americans thinking that everybody is like a staff member and the entire town of London, or just the UK in general, England, is just a giant theme park. They could walk around it in a day, didn't you know? Just hop in a car, explore the entire country in one day. This is so funny. I love that this guy thought it was a totally normal thing to do. Now I need an American to come to this post ASAP and let me know if they tip strangers on the street for offering advice. I doubt it. I don't know what was going on in that story. I've never heard of that before. You know, asking for directions is a very normal thing to do. Tipping the person, handing them a coin as a tip is really not normal. Unless, yeah, like I could see the idea that the person was a child. Like if the American thought they were a child, and even then it's bizarre and weird, but I don't know. All right, this is a longer one. Lived in Cornwall for my childhood, so got a lot of tourists. I worked in a really small coffee shop, which had like an open plan kitchen so the kitchen staff could see out into the dining room. It was a pretty slow day when an American family, 2 adults, 2 kids, came in and ordered 4 cream teas and 2 pots of tea. I had to take some time to explain that the cream teas came with a pot of tea and that their order would result in 6 pots of tea total. They seemed adamant about it, but I got the impression that they hadn't understood, so I striked the extra 2 pots of tea off the order once they had sat down. Only the parents were drinking tea and the kids had some juice. I don't know much about tea, so I might be teed out of this one. Once they got their order, 4 times cream teas. Okay, so 4 cream teas and 2 juices. They seemed happy enough. I went back behind the till and went about my work until I glanced back over at them to see if they were okay, and they looked disgusted, like really effing ill, on the edge of vomiting. So I ran over asking them if they were okay. What I effing saw on their table, I shit you not, had to be close to high treason. These mother effers had poured their tears. Might as well be poured their tears. These mother effers had poured their teas into their cup and placed their cream and jam on their scones the wrong way around, and had been effing dunking them into their teas. When I tell you I effing lost it, I couldn't hold it in. I was laughing so hard. They had bits of clotted cream floating in their tea and chunks of strawberry jam everywhere. They said that they thought they were biscuits, the American kind, and had heard that Brits like to dunk biscuits in their tea. So I made the connection. I was in a mix of laughing and feeling bad for them. Through my tears, I explained to them what they had done, and then they blamed me for not properly explaining it to them in the first place. They paid up and were surprised at how low the price was. I didn't tell them about striking off the 2 extra teas, and complained that they had too much tea for the table, because the tea was supposed to be just for the adults, and they got 4 pots of it. At this point, I just apologized and they left. Probably a good idea not to. There's no point to engage if somebody's arguing with you in that case, especially an arrogant American. I think we see these stories a lot, and Americans just kind of being entitled, being ignorant, not knowing something, it being their fault, and then still complaining and, berating a lot of the times, like retail workers or just people in general in foreign countries when the Americans are tourists. It's like, you didn't do the research. You are ignorant of this is a you problem, not a they problem, right? These ones are pretty simple, yet seem to be really difficult to comprehend for certain Americans. I've seen a group peering through the windows of someone's house in the Lake District to see what it's like to live in. That is potentially illegal. It's like peeping Tom. I was just thinking about the other day. So I watched Back to the Future the other day. George is a creep. He's sitting up in a tree with his binoculars looking at women changing in their bedrooms. It's funny because I hadn't watched the film in a long time, and it's just interesting how times change and social norms have changed incredibly, obviously. But even back then, just that it's kind of like a nothing scene in the film, and then he falls and gets hit by Marty. Like, that's pretty wild, though. He's just like he's a creep. He's a creepy dude. Two arguing whether it was the London Bridge or the Westminster Bridge. It was the Tower Bridge, as stated on a sign next to them. They hadn't noticed. Classic. Climbing into the beds in Auschwitz to try them out. Oh, God. No. You're in that place and climbing into the beds in Auschwitz. This might be the wildest one we've ever seen. God dang. That's real bad. Holy. I tell you what. Sort of a fun story. American here. The first day we landed and made it to London, we stopped at a random pub for drinks. Hadn't had the currency long enough to know easily what to pay with. So when we ordered, from the bartender who looked very much like a football hooligan, I just sort of held my palm open with all the coins on it and looked at him like, please help me. He laughed and grabbed the coins he needed out of my hand, and that was it. We learned after that, but it was a funny/sweet exchange. See, this was a good one. I like this American. That's actually this was fine. That's fine. Totally good. Not in real life, but on Reddit. A man on the travel sub was commenting on the worst ever place he had visited, York. He was saying the reason it was terrible was because it was supposed to be this magical, historical place, and all the buildings had been converted into shops. And basically was suggesting that tourism had ruined the authenticity of the place. Like Hun, York is a living, functioning city. It just really made me titter. Titter. I like that. I'm tittering right now. Those buildings were shops before your country existed. People lived there. It's not a historical amusement park where you go to ruin the view. The people need clothes and cakes. Yeah, American ignorance at its finest. The first thing to say is that nearly everyone exemplifies the worst of their countries when on holiday. It's a mix of anonymity and diffusion of responsibility. That's actually a fair point. Often I think tourists stick out like a sore thumb. Depends where you are, of course, and it depends how ignorant you are. But I think if you have a generosity, a kindness, and a humility, people are awesome everywhere, right? That's the thing. As much as the news wants us to all kind of be at each other's throats and scapegoat people in different countries, when it comes down to it, the people that aren't in power, the people that aren't, part of the elitist cabal that's kind of runs the world and destroys everything. The people, the lower classes, the middle classes, like, they're kind, generous, good people for the most part, I think. So, anyways, let's continue this one. Secondly, oh my God, I have so many. I'm British, but live and work in a very popular German tourist town. There's the usual. High school, college jocks come rampaging into the bar screaming, "Smells like freedom in here." And very sweet but well-meaning Americans telling me, a British bartender, that IPAs are coming to Europe soon because they hadn't conceived of the idea of something originating outside of the U.S. See that idea quite a bit of U.S., this incorrect line of thought where the U.S. invented everything and they're so bubbled and USA-centric that they really haven't expanded their horizons much. But my favorite had to be this exchange. I am sat outside a cafe with a friend. It's a market square lined with bars and cafes. We had coffees in our hands. An older gentleman approaches us. We are loudly speaking English. "Gentlemen, do you speak English?" My friend and I look at each other. Us? Yes. Over enunciated. Do you know anywhere in this city where I can get a coffee? My friend and I look at our coffees and then the surrounding cafes. Anywhere here is good. You'll find a lot of options. Pause. Right. And do I have to pay with them euros or can I use real money? Long pause and a lot of tongue biting. Euros, I'm afraid. Do you know what credit cards are? Yes, but most prefer cash payments. Never mind then. We can help you if you'd like. Oh no, I've seen this. You're not getting your hands on my money. I know a scam when I see it, begins backing off. I know how much $1 is worth here. I'm not letting you use my money to buy a house. Whoa. Low blow from the American. $1 is worth less than €1, but okay. Gentleman scuttles away, probably excited to tell some over-embellished story about how he narrowly avoided getting scammed by European thugs. I've had worse, but this is the most brain-numbing one I can think of. Yeah, so arrogant, entitled American, being a doofus, a bugger, a goober. Generally, I find asking if they can drive to like Glasgow, and then Cardiff, then London, then York, and see everything all in one day funny. Yeah, that's what I mentioned earlier about gonna see the entire country in a day. It's pretty small. Some personal run-ins. One girl kept asking how long the train is to Glasgow. Oh, Glasgow. That's a cool place. From Carlisle. And literally the woman behind the counter was like, I have no idea what you mean. One gave me money in a shop once, like I was the perfume counter girl, and asked where something was, and I told him. He gave me a $5, and I thought maybe he was paying, and was like, can I scan the item? But he'd already walked off. We didn't accept tips, so I was very confused. I had to get my manager to go after him and give him his money back. I know that like tipping in the US, but I was expecting it as a perfume counter girl at the time. I wasn't expecting it. One did keep asking people in Liverpool where they were from, and when they said, I'm from here, they would get really confused. What? One I met when I was a barmaid, and they bought me a shot. He asked how old I was, like 19 or 20 at the time. And he asked, was I not underage? And had he just bought my first ever shot and was generally worried he'd get in trouble. And I was like, no, mate, it's 18 legally. Hardly anyone waits till then. You're fine. Thanks for the drink. And the last one. When I was in America, one of them told my Irish dad that he was Irish too, and that his great-great-great-great-grandfather left in 1654 or something really specific, and asked my dad, could he tell he was Irish? Probably not. Oh, I have one more. When I visited Mount Vesuvius, first of all, there was an American on the tour with me that was pretty pissed. She had to walk uphill, to get to the top of a mountain. Oh no, walking uphill? Being uncomfortable, very temporarily? Temporary uncomfortableness? When we got to the top, there were a bunch of Americans who had bought a 10-foot flagpole and a flag with them. They pitched it in the rim and all chest bumped and shouted and whooped and high-fived each other. It was effing excruciatingly embarrassing. Yeah, that is incredibly ignorant. Damn. They put an American flag up? Why? American. So where are you from? Me, York. You don't sound like you're from New York. Have you lived in the UK a long time? Just York. Not New York. It's a place in England that New York was named after. That's interesting. I never heard of there. Pulls out London Underground map. Can you show me which station it's nearest to? He did seem genuinely interested and was friendly. He was just a bit clueless about the UK in general. Yeah, see, that's fine. Not obnoxious or rude. Just a little bit ignorant. No biggie. Not a biggie. That's fine. Nothing wrong with that. I was in Amsterdam a few years back for the run-up to New Year, and it was packed solid full of all people from all over the world, including a lot of Americans. You could tell they were American because they would be in big groups. all wearing one of those Patty's Day type hats, but for I love Amsterdam, and they would chant USA, USA over and over at 1 a.m. What? That that is the most American thing. In a foreign country, yelling USA, USA. Drunk and stoned with a bag of chips. What? It made me laugh more than anything because they reminded me of when Joey from Friends goes to London and buys the same style hat and thinks it's the business. Okay, one more, and then I'll let you guys go for the day. I witnessed one American lady who wouldn't buy an Irish Aran sweater because her husband was convinced that they came from Iran. All right, that one's interesting considering the current geopolitical situation in the world. Craziness. All right, we'll see you on the next one. Share your stories down below. All right, peace out. Bye-bye. Later. That's wild, man.